On the 7th of September 1936, a black and white film camera in a concrete enclosure at Hobart Zoo recorded the very last Tasmanian tiger pacing in front of the lens. The footage runs for 52 seconds. By the next morning, the species was extinct. The keepers had locked her outside the heated shelter the night before. A Tasmanian winter cold front swept through Hobart. She froze to death. She was the last of an animal that had walked the earth for 4 million years. And 2 months earlier, the Tasmanian government had finally declared her species a protected animal. She was protected for 59 days, and then she was gone. This is the story of the Thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger that wasn't a tiger. The marsupial wolf that wasn't a wolf, and a last creature in a 4 million year evolutionary lineage that we killed for £1 per head. Its scientific name was Thylacinus cynocephalus. In Greek and Latin, the name translates to pouched dog, dog-headed. A dog-headed pouched dog. That tells you almost everything you need to know about how confused we have always been about what this animal actually was. The English-speaking world called her the Tasmanian tiger because of the dark stripes across her lower back. 13 to 21 of them, fading from sharp at the shoulders to soft along the tail base. Some people called her the Tasmanian wolf because of her body shape, the long muzzle, the sharp predator's teeth, the four-legged hunting stance. But she was not a tiger, and she was not a wolf, and she was not even, technically, a dog. The Thylacine was a marsupial. She carried her young in a backward-facing pouch. She gave birth to pups the size of a peanut, blind and undeveloped, who climbed into her pouch and continued growing there for 3 months. Her closest living relatives are not in the dog family or the cat family. Her closest relatives are the Tasmanian devil and the quoll small marsupial carnivore still found in Australia today. She belonged to a family of mammals called the Thylacinidae. The Thylacinidae family is now completely extinct. She was the last member of an entire branch of the mammalian tree of life. The body was roughly the size of a medium-large dog, about 6 feet from nose to tail tip, 15 to 30 kilograms, between 33 and 66 pounds. Sandy brown fur, those distinctive dark stripes, a stiff tail held straight out from the body that did not wag, and the jaw. Her jaw could open to 80 degrees. Most dogs open their mouths to about 35 degrees. Most predators on Earth max out around 50. The Thylacine's gape approached a right angle, making it one of the widest mouths of any mammal that has ever lived. She was an apex predator. The top of her food chain. For thousands of years she ruled the island of Tasmania. But to understand what she lost, you have to understand the world she ruled. 3,000 years ago, the Thylacine vanished from mainland Australia. The cause is debated, But the leading theory points to a new arrival on the continent, the dingo. Dingoes were brought to Australia by humans approximately 4,000 years ago. Within 1,000 years, the Thylacine had disappeared from every part of the mainland where dingoes ranged. But the dingoes never crossed the Bass Strait. Bass Strait is the stretch of cold, deep water that separates Tasmania from the southeastern coast of Australia. It is about 150 miles wide. To a dingo, it was uncrossable. To the Thylacine, it was a wall around her last sanctuary. She survived in Tasmania for another 3,000 years. This is the world she ruled, a cool, temperate wilderness blanketed in eucalyptus forest and tea tree scrub and button grass plains. Rainforests in the west, where moss grew on every surface. Rivers cutting through the central highlands. A coast scattered with kelp beds and rocky inlets. She shared it with wallabies and pademelons, the small kangaroos that were her primary prey, with echidnas and bandicoots, with Tasmanian devils who were smaller than her and lived on what she left behind, with the native hens that scuttled through the underbrush. She shared it with Aboriginal Tasmanians who had lived on the island for at least 40,000 years before any European arrived. They depicted the Thylacine in rock art throughout the island. They knew her. They had stories about her. They lived alongside her. She was the largest carnivorous marsupial that had ever existed on Earth. Then, in 1803, 3 ships arrived from England. They carried the first European settlers. They carried sheep. The world the Thylacine had ruled for 3 millennia had less than a century and a half left. To understand what the world lost when the Thylacine disappeared, you have to understand something almost unbelievable about how she came to exist. The Thylacine looked like a wolf. She had the same long muzzle, the same alert ears, the same lean predator body, the same 4-legged gait. Side by side with a placental wolf, a Thylacine could be mistaken for a strange, striped variant of the same animal. But the Thylacine and the grey wolf had not shared a common ancestor for 160 million years. 160 million years. The split between marsupial mammals and placental mammals happened in the Jurassic period, when dinosaurs still walked the Earth. From that moment forward, those 2 lineages evolved completely independently. They were separate experiments in mammalian life, on opposite sides of a vast evolutionary gulf. And yet, somehow, both experiments arrived at the same animal. This is what biologists call convergent evolution. When 2 completely separate evolutionary lineages are placed under similar ecological pressures, they sometimes produce identical solutions. Sharks and dolphins both evolved streamlined torpedo bodies for fast swimming, but sharks are fish and dolphins are mammals, separated by 400 million years of evolution. The same principle, written across time. The thylacine and the grey wolf are the most extreme example of this in the entire mammal class. A study published in Communications Biology in 2021 showed that the two species developed nearly parallel skull growth trajectories during their fetal stages. The same architecture, built independently. Even the regulatory genes that shape brain development converged into similar patterns, despite no shared ancestry to inherit them from. You could line up a thylacine skeleton next to a wolf skeleton, and unless you knew what to look for, you might not be able to tell them apart. But the differences were there. The wide jaw, the stiff tail that did not wag, the marsupial pouch, the internal anatomy of marsupial reproduction that has no parallel in any placental mammal. The thylacine was a wolf shape, but everything inside that shape was something else entirely. She was nature's strongest evidence that life, given enough time and enough pressure, finds the same answers more than once. She was a 4 million year experiment proving that the wolf shape was the right shape, and that there was more than one way to build it. And then, in less than 150 years, we erased the entire experiment. The first European settlers arrived in Tasmania in 1803 under the command of Lieutenant John Bowen of the British Royal Navy. They came with sheep. By the 1820s, sheep farming was the primary economic activity on the island. Tens of thousands of sheep grazed on land that had been thylacine hunting territory for thousands of years. The settlers began to notice that some of their sheep were turning up dead. They blamed the thylacine. In 1830, the Van Diemen's Land Company, a private agricultural enterprise that owned vast tracts of northern Tasmania, began paying private bounties for dead thylacines. By the 1880s, the practice had spread across the island, and in 1888, the Tasmanian government made it official. The Tasmanian Parliament enacted a public bounty paying £1 British for every adult thylacine killed and 10 shillings for every pup. For context, £1 in 1888 was roughly a week's wages for a working man. 10 shillings was half that. For 21 years, the bounty stood. Over 2,184 confirmed bounty payments were made between 1,888 and 1,909. The true kill count was almost certainly higher, because not every dead thylacine was claimed for payment. But here is the cruelest part of this story. The thylacine could not have killed sheep. In 2011, a research team at the University of New South Wales, led by Maria Todd, performed a biomechanical analysis of preserved thylacine skulls and jaws. They modeled the maximum bite force the species could produce. They compared it to the bite force required to kill prey of various sizes. The result was unambiguous. The Thylacine's jaw, wide as it was structurally too weak to deliver a killing bite on an animal as large as a sheep. The wide gape was for grasping, not crushing. The teeth were sharp, but the muscles behind them lacked the mass to break the neck or skull of a sheep-sized prey animal. Modern science has confirmed what some Tasmanian sheep farmers actually suspected at the time. The real culprits behind sheep deaths were the feral dogs descended from escaped settler dogs. Drought, disease, competition from rabbits that had been introduced to the island in the early 1800s. The chief inspectors of sheep, who reported to the colonial government on the actual causes of sheep losses, never officially confirmed that thylacines were a significant predator of livestock. But the bounty continued for 21 years. The thylacine was killed because she looked like a wolf, because she was easy to blame, because she lived in a place where her ecosystem had no political representation, and because shooting her for £1 was easier than facing the actual reasons sheep were dying. This was not an accident of geological forces. It was not a slow extinction event driven by climate or competition or disease alone. It was a deliberate, government-funded, 2-decade campaign of extermination against an animal that was almost certainly innocent of the crime she was being killed for. By the 1930s, the thylacine was almost gone from the wild. Hobart Zoo, formerly known as the Beaumaris Zoo, held the last known specimens. There were a handful of individuals across the years. The keepers wrote about them in zoo records. Visitors came to see them. Almost no one understood that they were watching the last members of an entire family of mammals. In late 1933, a filmmaker named David Flea visited the Beaumaris Zoo with a 16mm camera. He set up the camera outside the Thylacine enclosure. He filmed a single individual pacing along the inside of the chain link fence, back and forth, back and forth. She did not seem distressed. She did not seem aware that she was being filmed. She did what captive predators do in concrete enclosures with no stimulation. She walked the perimeter. The footage ran for 52 seconds. It is one of the most watched pieces of archival film footage in the world. It is the only confirmed motion picture of a living thylacine. She lived in that enclosure for approximately 3 more years. On the 14th of July 1936, the Tasmanian government finally declared the thylacine a protected species. After 133 years of European settlement and 48 years of official bounty-funded extermination, killing a thylacine became illegal under Tasmanian law. 59 days later, on the night of the 6th of September 1936, an unseasonable cold front swept through Hobart. She was locked outside her sleeping enclosure that night. The door was either jammed or her keepers had simply forgotten to open it for her. The records are not clear on which. She had no shelter from the wind. The temperature dropped well below freezing. Sometime in the small hours of the 7th of September 1936, the last known thylacine on Earth died from hypothermia. The local Hobart newspaper, reporting on her death later that week, wrote that she had been in splendid health and condition, but, unfortunately, contracted a chill during the recent spell of cold weather. She had not contracted a chill. She had been left outside on a freezing night by the people whose job it was to protect her. She was the last individual of an entire family of mammals, a 4-million-year evolutionary lineage that converged with placental wolves across 160 million years of independent evolution. She was the last of an animal that Aboriginal Tasmanians had lived with for 40,000 years. She was protected by law for less than 2 months, and then she was gone. There is one more thing to say about her. For most of the last 50 years, the world has called her Benjamin. Most documentary footage from the 1980s onward uses the name, books, articles, school textbooks, museum, placards. They all call her Benjamin. They identify her as a male. They tell the same story we have just told, with that one detail attached to it, the last Thylacine. His name was Benjamin. In 1968, more than 30 years after her death, a man named Frank Darby gave an interview to an Australian magazine. He claimed to have been a curator at the Hobart Zoo in the 1930s. He claimed to have personally cared for the last Thylacine. He said her name was Benjamin. Frank Darby was not a curator at the Hobart Zoo. The historical records show he never worked there. His claim was a fabrication. There is no record of any Thylacine at the Bomara Zoo ever being called Benjamin. The name appears nowhere in zoo logs, contemporary newspaper accounts, or scientific records from her lifetime. The name was invented after the fact. In 2022, researchers re-examining preserved remains from the Hobart Zoo confirmed that the last Thylacine, the individual filmed in 1933 and found dead on the concrete of her enclosure in September 1936, was a female. She was female. She was almost certainly not named Benjamin. We do not actually know what, if anything, she was called. Perhaps she had no name at all. Perhaps the keepers simply called her the Thylacine, the way you might refer to an exhibit and not a person. Perhaps the historical record has lost whatever they did call her, and only the fabricated Benjamin survived to fill the empty space. For more than half a century, the entire world has been getting the name and the sex of the last individual of an extinct species wrong. We don't even know her real name. In the 89 years since her death, more than 3,800 unconfirmed sightings of thylacines have been reported on the Australian mainland, where she had supposedly gone extinct 3,000 years ago. More than 1,000 sightings have been logged within Tasmania itself. None have been scientifically confirmed. The most credible report came in 1982. A Tasmanian National Parks ranger named Hans Narding documented a clear daylight observation of what he described unmistakably as a thylacine in the Togari region of northwestern Tasmania. Narding had no reason to lie, was a trained wildlife observer, and his sighting has never been refuted. The Tasmanian wilderness still contains vast tracts of forest that have never been comprehensively surveyed by modern biologists. The species could, in theory, persist somewhere. The evidence does not support it. The hope does not die. And in Texas, A company called Colossal Biosciences is working to bring her back. In October 2024, Colossal announced that it had reconstructed her genome from a 110-year-old preserved skull, 99.9% accurate. The most complete ancient genome of any extinct species ever assembled. In May 2025, in partnership with the University of Melbourne, they announced the successful creation of thylacine stem cells. They have built a prototype artificial uterus and successfully gestated marsupial embryos halfway through pregnancy. Their target reintroduction date for a living thylacine in the Tasmanian wilderness is approximately 2033. It is possible that within a decade, an animal genetically identical to the species we erased in 1936 will once again walk through eucalyptus forest in northern Tasmania, but she will not be the female who died alone in a concrete enclosure on the night of the 6th of September 1936. She will not be the species that Aboriginal Tasmanians lived alongside for 40,000 years. She will not be the 4-million-year evolutionary experiment that convergence-evolved with wolves across 160 million years of separate history. She will be something else. A reconstruction, a second chance perhaps, a monument certainly. But the original animal, the original lineage, is gone. And the female who froze to death in Hobart Zoo on a winter night in 1936, protected by law for 59 days, is still gone. We don't know her name. We don't even know if she had one. If stories of forgotten creatures and lost worlds find you, subscribe and stay close. There are more of them. The Earth has been rehearsing extinction for a very long time. This was Echoes of Earth. The rest is still buried.